Hello, YouTubers. Welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. This is the second of 3 episodes that I have for you today. This one has to do with Muslims and terror attacks and Russian diplomats and all kinds of intrigue going on here. We've got 5 articles for you. All these URLs are in the description of the video for your convenience so that you can look up whatever you need to out of them for your research. Some of them will have videos and links and all kinds of things for you. So we'll get started here. The first one's off of mirror.co.uk, and it is called Russian Diplomat Found Dead from Gunshot Wounds at Home Just Hours After Ambassador Killed at the Art Exhibit. And we can get it to file up here so that we can see this. Here we go. Hamster's being a little slow on me this morning. Russian diplomat's been found dead from gunshot wounds at his home, it is reported. Peter Poshlakov, age 56, was discovered with a bullet injury to his head at his flat in Moscow's Brakitsky Prospect, according to local media. The alleged shooting came just hours after the news broke of the assassination of Russian ambassador to Turkey, Andrei Karlov. Karlov was killed by his police protection officer who screamed Allah Akbar and "Don't forget Aleppo, don't forget Syria." He was shot in the back by 22-year-old Turkish policeman Mevlut Mert Akanas, or Attentus, I guess it is, in what Russia last night described as a terror attack. And there are pictures in this if you want to pull it up and take a look at those. In Poshlakov's shooting, reported by REN TV early today, 2 empty bullet shells were found in the high-ranking diplomat's flat. A gun was also reportedly discovered under the sink in the bathroom. The circumstances of the incident remain unclear, and it's understood police are examining all possible theories as to Poshlakov's death. The diplomat's wife was reportedly in the flat at the time of the shooting, but is safe. Poshlakov was said to be a senior figure in the Latin American department of the Russian Foreign Ministry. Some reports claim he had left the foreign ministry, but it is unclear if he worked for any other branch of the Russian government. He had served previously at the Russian embassy in Bolivia. It comes as Britain had apparently been blamed for Karlov's assassination. Russian ultra-nationalist leader Vladimir Zelensky claimed the attack was intended to stop an upcoming visit by Mr. Erdogan to Moscow to seal closer ties with Mr. Putin. And there's more pictures here, and then it goes on. It says, he said, the West is trying to embroil us. All conflicts were inspired by Britain. This is done deliberately to frustrate Erdogan's visit. For sure now, the visit will be postponed. Meanwhile, Kremlin Senator France Klintovich, I guess it is, deputy to chairman of the Russian Upper Chamber's Defense and Security Committee, pointed the finger at NATO. He said it can be ISIS or the Kurdish army which tries to hurt Erdogan, but maybe, and it's highly likely, that the representatives of foreign NATO secret services are behind it. What has happened is a true provocation of challenge. It is a challenge for Russia. Karlov, age 62, was shot 9 times as he was filmed making a speech at an art gallery in Turkish capital Ankara. Horrific footage shows diplomat wincing in pain as gunshots loudly ring out before collapsing on the ground. His assassination was then His assassin was then cornered by Turkish police colleagues and killed. Turkish President Erdogan called Russian President Vladimir Putin yesterday to discuss the shocking attack. The next article that I have for you is off the EUTimes.net, and it says Germans flee en masse to Hungary. I'll get the ads to shut down. Germans flee en masse to Hungary amid Muslim Christmas truck attacks. Native Germans who no longer feel safe in their own country are now seeking a better life in Hungary, away from rape, murder, and terror epidemic brought about by African and Middle Eastern immigrants. 8 out of 10 of my German customers are fleeing en masse arrival of migrants in Germany, says Otmar Heidi, a Hungarian estate agent working around Lake Balaton. He says Germans find their country to be increasingly dangerous and they move to Hungary because it's safer, cheaper, and family friendly. They don't want to live in fear anymore, surrounded by radical Muslims, Heidi said. I have never had so many inquiries from Germany, says Gunter Schwartz, another local estate agent. All of them talk of their fears of being invaded by foreigners, which is the main reason they're moving. Schwartz tells his German customers, I'll drive you to very pretty, peaceful places. No refugees, no crime, friendly neighbors, nature. Among these German refugees is the Brandt family, which escaped from Frankfurt because they are sick of a country they can barely recognize anymore. People feel betrayed. They are afraid of bomb attacks, muggings, everything that's happening, but especially everything that could happen later. Angela Merkel, the EU, and basically all the West politicians and media thought that they could have the West without Westerners in it. As cities, towns, and states become increasingly white minority across the world, they are being proven wrong, even if they refuse to accept it. If the West cannot learn from its mistakes very soon, then Hungary, Balkans, the Baltic, and Russia will be the new West, while the old West will become a third world war zone. It's that simple. For he's off Fox News World, and it says raid spoiled planned. Oh, now it's going to jump around on me. Hang on. Let's let the little hamster catch up here. Raid spoil planned Melbourne Christmas terror attack, police say. Australian police say 5 men are accused of planning a Christmas Day terror attack targeting a number of landmarks in Melbourne, the country's second largest city. Between age 21 and 26 were expected to appear in court Friday to be charged with acts of a terrorist event. They are believed to have been self-radicalized and inspired by ISIS, police say. 4 of the 5 suspects were born in Australia, the 5th from Egypt. They were arrested in a series of overnight raids at 5 properties in Melbourne's northern suburbs. 2 of the people initially arrested in the raids, a 26-year-old man and a 20-year-old woman, were released without being charged, a police statement said. Victoria Police Chief Commissioner Graham Ashton told reporters that police had gathered evidence in the raids that the plotters were planning to use explosives in their attack. We gathered the makings of an improvised explosive device, he said. Ashton said the suspects had planned attacks on Melbourne's Flinders Street train station, neighboring Federation Square, and nearby St. Paul's Cathedral. If this had gotten under our guard, this would have been a significant attack, Ashton told reporters. Certainly, there was the potential for quite a number of people to be injured or killed in this attack. Ashton said police had been watching the alleged plotters for some time, adding that intelligence suggested no threats to any other event. Victoria State Premier Daniel Andrews said there will be extra police on the streets of Melbourne on Christmas Day to make the public feel safe. Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull said, this is one of the most substantial terrorist plots that has been disrupted over the last several years. Islamist terrorism is a global challenge that affects us all, but we must not be cowed by the terrorist, Turnbull told reporters. We will continue to go about our lives as we always have. What these criminals seek to do is kill, but they also seek to frighten us, to cow us into abandoning our Australian way of life. They want to frighten Australians. They want to divide Australians. They want us to turn on each other. We will not let them succeed, he added. Since Australia's terrorist threat level was elevated in September 2014, the government says there have been 4 extremist attacks and 12 plots foiled by the police. Australian Federal Police Commissioner Andrew Colvin said the plotters had moved very quickly from a plan to develop a capability to attack. In terms of events that we have seen over the past few years in Australia, this certainly comes more than any other event I've seen, Colvin said. We believe that we have removed the bulk of this particular cell, this group, he said. Arrests were made days after the truck smashed into Christmas market in Berlin on Monday, killing 12 people in the latest terror attack to strike Europe this year. The next one I have for you is off of EUTimes.net, and it says, UK Muslims chant, USA, you will pay. Caliphate is on its way. Muslims in London chanted Allah Akbar and threatened the United States in their latest rally outside the Syrian embassy in Belgrave Square. Huge crowds of Muslims chanting Allah Akbar descended on London for the second time in a week in a series of protests to demand an Islamic caliphate in Syria. On Wednesday, more than 1,000 protesters gathered outside the Syrian embassy in London Belgrave Square, calling for America to be punished over Aleppo. While one protester appeared to be waving a Taliban flag, others were seen handed words made by Hizb ut-Tahrir Britain, which calls for reestablishment of caliphate. Then, just days later, another 400 British Muslims traveled to the capital from cities including Birmingham and Bradford to take part in a second march on Belgrave Square. The first caliphate began after the Prophet Muhammad's death in 632. The last caliphate ended in 1924 after the Ottoman Turks slaughtered well over 3 million Christian Americans, Greek and Assyrians. The enemy is in the gates, and they do not mince words. They are openly calling for what they believe to be their final caliphate. They are seeking worldwide domination. Islamic armies have always butchered their way across the nation. Never in history have Western nations allowed millions of military-aged Muslim men into their countries with open arms. This is time for Western leaders to put an end to this insanity and to close the borders. If we don't stop the flow of Muslim migrants into the West, we will lose our freedoms. We will all be living under Sharia law. And the final article I have in this episode is off of jihadwatch.org, and it says, Italian girl converts to Islam and joins the Islamic State. As a martyr, she says. She had to be convinced in absentia of aiding terrorists because she isn't in Italy. She's in the Islamic State. Yet another convert to Islam gets the idea that her new religion, which all Western non-Muslim authorities insist is peaceful, commands her to commit treason and mass murder. Authorities remain resolutely, we'll try that again. Authorities remain resolutely uninterested in this phenomenon. An Italian woman who traveled to Syria years ago proclaiming her support for Islamic State was sentenced in absentia on Monday to 9 years in jail on terrorism-related charges, the court ruled. Maria Galea Sergio, age 29, converted to Islam in 2007 and moved to Syria with her husband in 2014. She later urged her parents and sister to join them and sign up to the jihad or holy war announced by Islamic State rulers. Dad dragged Mom here by the hair. She doesn't have the right to any opinions, she said in a call home that was taped by police. I can't wait to die as a martyr, she said in another call, predicting that the holy war would come one day, predicting that the holy war would one day reach Rome. Her parents and sister began to sell their possessions after agreeing to move to Syria too, but they were arrested in 2015 and prevented from leaving Italy. Maria Galea was found guilty of international terrorism and organizing trips to facilitate terrorism. The father was sentenced to 4 years in jail on Monday after being convicted of aiding terrorists. The sister was tried earlier this year and sentenced to 5 years. The The mother died of a heart attack shortly after her arrest in 2015. Maria Glez's husband, Aldo Kobuzai, was given 10-year term. He is believed to be still in Syria with his wife, but nothing has been heard from them in more than a year. And that's all I have for you in this episode. If you like what we're doing, give it a thumbs up, share it around so people get to hear the real news, and don't forget to subscribe. Click the little bell beside the subscribe button and check the box so that you get email messages when we're going to turn these shows loose. And that way you stay up to date on all the news. And I'll see you in the next episode.